Hello again and welcome. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Sylvie and this is the Vacant Lot Podcast. This is a show where I relive and recap some of the best moments from one of the greatest cartoons ever made and one of my favorite shows growing up, Hey Arnold. In the last episode, I listed some of the best episodes to come from season 1 of the series. I figured I would continue in that trajectory this week and talk about the best season 2 episodes. There's going to be a few caveats with this list as with the prior list I did for season 1. In the last show that I did, I made a few rules that the episodes I would list would not include any holiday episodes, so Arnold's Valentine and Arnold's Christmas were excluded from the season 1 list, as well as a lot of episodes that were particularly made for season 1 that weren't shown until season 2 and season 3. Those episodes were also excluded. In today's episode, I'm going to continue the rule where no holiday episodes are included, so unfortunately, if Arnold's Halloween is one of your favorite episodes, that will not be included on the list because it is a holiday episode. And I'm also going to make another controversial ruling. I reviewed the season list for Hey Arnold very shortly before I started to record, like literally maybe 20-30 minutes before I turned the microphone on. And I already had a list set up of my favorite top 5 season 2 episodes. And then I made a discovery. Some of the episodes that I thought were season 2 are actually season 1 episodes. I know I went through a list of episodes, as I said earlier, that were made specifically for season 1 but weren't shown until seasons 2 and season 3. Well, there were some episodes that looked like they fit that criteria, but they were still considered season 1 episodes. For example, I wanted to put one of my favorite episodes, World Records, on this list, and only after the fact did I realize World Records is actually a season 1 episode. I was under the impression it was season 2. So I kind of grappled with, okay, do I put it on the list? Do I not put it on the list? And in the end, I decided to make a controversial move. I've decided this list will include some season 1 episodes. And the reason why is a lot of the episodes that I mentioned in the previous episode that were excluded from season 1, they look similar. Like there's a few episodes that were included in season 1 that could have been included in season 2 because they have the same look. As I mentioned in the previous show that I did, there were 3 animation houses involved in making the episodes for season 1, and a lot of the episodes towards the end of season 1 look drastically different from the episodes that were created early on, like the first couple episodes for season 1. So it lends itself to a lot of confusion. So in the end, I decided to make the call that any episode that I initially associate with season 2, even if it's a season 1 episode, I decided I'll include it in the list because I don't want this whole list to be saturated with technical season 1 episodes. I think there'll probably be 1 or 2 episodes on this list that are from season 1, either a season 1 episode that's been officially considered a season 1 episode, and then also one that's been carried over to season 2. But I just want to put that out of the way now. This will be a controversial list because there are going to be some season 1 episodes on this list. So now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to proceed. I know there's going to be a lot of people who don't agree with this list, but as I said, please don't crucify me. I'm just a fan. So we're going to start off with the first episode that I think is one of the best for season 2. And this is one of the ones I had mentioned earlier. This is season 1 episode that I thought was season 2. It actually was shown along with World Records, which I also thought was season 2. But since I've already talked about World Records in a previous episode, I decided to omit that one, but I'm going to keep this one because to my core, I think this is a season 2 episode to me. This is False Alarm. So False Alarm, basic premise of False Alarm is someone pulls the fire alarm at PS 118. They catch Eugene within the scene of the crime and accuse him of pulling the fire alarm. So as per the bylaws of the school, it's a really weird bylaw, if I might say so, Eugene can only be expelled if he is found guilty by a jury of his peers being the kids in his classroom. So the jury consists of Arnold, Gerald, Phoebe, Helga, Harold, and Curly. And everyone votes guilty except Arnold, who's convinced there's enough reasonable doubt to believe that Eugene is still innocent. So the episode proceeds with every character going through why they think Eugene is guilty, and Arnold explaining that he still doesn't think it's reasonable. There's enough evidence to convict him totally. It's only towards the very end of the episode where Arnold reveals his version and why he thinks that Eugene is innocent that someone else comes forward and confesses that they had pulled the fire alarm, and Eugene is let off scotch-free. I guess I should start with my justification on why I'm putting a season 1 episode on this season 2 list. First of all, this is a weird looking episode. I'm just going to come out and say it right now. This is one of those episodes that has that weird transitional look. I've always thought of season 2 as a very transitional season appearance wise, because while it doesn't have any episodes that, well, it doesn't look like the crude, really early episodes of season 1, by the end of season 2, it takes on the look of Hey Arnold that everyone's most comfortable with. I think it's the look that, look wise, I think Hey Arnold looked the best probably by the end of season 2 up until the end of, let's say, season 3. I think that was the gold standard of how the show looked. But there was that brief period after the crude look of season 1 and the more polished look of season 3 where things just looked weird. Like, it's hard to describe. The colors were a bit more pastel, maybe because, again, they were still using colored pencils in the background as opposed to paint. Arnold's head just looks, I don't know how else to say it, just spongy looking. It looks more round and soft than in the previous episodes of season 1 and the later episodes of season 3. And I don't know, there's a lot of elements to it that just seem unique. Major thing that comes to my mind is Squeaky Peterson. Squeaky? It's like a one-off character that's only mentioned once in the entire series, never mentioned again. Squeaky Peterson is a character that looks a lot like Stinky Peterson, and she's only mentioned when Harold goes over the evidence of the case, or he recounts the events that led up to the pulling of the fire alarm. And if you listen to him talk, he's using all these big words and trying to sound really important, but he's mispronouncing a lot of words. Like, instead of saying Squeaky Peterson was distracted, he said she was detracted, and it makes sense and then it doesn't make sense. So I often had a theory that maybe there was no Squeaky Peterson, and for whatever reason Harold might have mispronounced Stinky's name, and because this was his warped kind of retelling of the events, Stinky became Squeaky. I don't know. I maybe I'm alone in this, but I always wanted to see more of Squeaky because, you know, like, okay, so does he have a cousin? Does he have a sister? Like, why do we never hear about this character ever again? But I think it makes more sense just to believe that maybe Harold had a verbal flub and Stinky suddenly became the effeminate Squeaky. But anyway, I like this episode also because it does involve a lot of the other minor characters. It's a very strong introduction for one character, which I won't really bring up, which I won't mention because it kind of spoils the ending of the episode. But it gives personality to a character that beforehand was just a background character, but now has a definitive sort of personality. So yes, this is a very good season 1, season 2 episode. However you take it, it's a good episode. To me, this will always be a season 2 episode, as World Records will always be a season 2 episode. Say what you will, I don't care. To me, it looks like season 2. It's season 2. Okay, moving on. Next episode on this list is an episode I have talked about in the past. Eating Contest. This is a season 2 episode. Again, this one looks more in this traditional style of the show. I've already mentioned Eating Contests in a prior episode where I talked about the best episodes centered around Arnold, so I won't go too much into this again, but it's just a good episode. Arnold competing with some other kids in his grade, as well as the infamous Seymour, aka The Disposal, and he's trying to win He's trying to win an eating contest. So as I mentioned previously, this is an episode that looks more like an episode of Hey Arnold. It looks more like the design that most people would be familiar with. And yeah, so I don't, if you want to know more about why I enjoy this episode, you can watch a previous episode of The Vacant Lot where I talk about the best Arnold episodes. But this is a more definitive season 2 episode because it looks like season 2 and it's just, it evolves the show. Okay, so moving on. Next episode I'm putting on the list is yet another season 1 episode, but this one is officially considered season 2, whereas False Alarm was a season 1 episode that is season 1, and I just have my own opinions. This is a season 2 episode, according to Nickelodeon. So this is Biosquare. In the episode Biosquare, Arnold and Helga have to complete a science project. So for their science project, they decide to live in a controlled, ecological, natural environment. They choose a greenhouse as their setting. So they essentially lock themselves in a greenhouse for 24 hours and interact, and at the same time conduct some minor science experiments for their project. So as you would expect, the two do not get along. Helga is just belligerent, she's bossy, she's angry, she doesn't want to cooperate, and Arnold's trying to make the best of the situation, trying to see the positive, and even when he's getting just reamed by Helga, he's trying to be diplomatic and say, you shouldn't be angry about this. I should be more angry because you did that. And it's basically just a whole episode of them being miserable to each other until towards the very end where they somehow flood the greenhouse and almost drown, but they're able to help each other at the end to escape relatively unscathed. I mean, in the beginning of the episode, Helga's arm's in a sling, so she sustained some sort of minor injury in the whole kerfuffle. I like this episode because it's one of the few episodes where Arnold and Helga work together, or Arnold and Helga spend a lot of time together, and Helga does not go into her whole soliloquy phase. In a typical Helga episode, when Helga's around Arnold, she'll be mean for a bit, and then she'll go off to the side, and then she'll spout her love, like, "Oh, Arnold, my love," and wax poetic about him. That doesn't happen at all in this episode, which is very rare, but also makes sense because when you take into account the setting that they're in, Arnold and Helga are in a greenhouse that's essentially, the walls are made of glass. You could see what's going on at all times. Helga has no privacy whatsoever within the greenhouse. And even if she were trying to go in a secluded corner of the greenhouse, she probably still would be seen because outside of the greenhouse, Arnold's grandpa and one of the boarders, Oscar Koshka, are watching the whole science project unfold. So Helga literally has no time to herself during these 24 hours. I also had a thought rewatching the episode, like, was there a bathroom in the greenhouse? Like, they don't actually show an outhouse. So I guess maybe they used the outhouse, but that's the only time they were allowed to leave, or maybe there was a bucket, or I don't know. I'm obviously overthinking this. I find this episode interesting because Helga does not get the opportunity to go into her soft, gooey self. And I think that probably adds to why she's so frustrated and angry, because normally she has that opportunity to go away, to hide, duck under something, and then do her sappy thing, and then when Brainy comes up, she can punch him in the face. She doesn't get that opportunity in this episode, and I think that's why she seems even more belligerent than normal when I watch this. I'm like, oh my god, Helga, you're just such a you know what, like she's just a brat in this episode. And Arnold's trying to make the most of it, but even he kind of gets fed up, and they just have a bit of a scuffle at the end. It makes me wonder, seeing this, they live together for 24 hours, almost like a couple, like a married couple. So for a little bit, I thought back to the season 5 episode Married, where Arnold and Helga dream about the other living with each other. And their time in the greenhouse kind of eerily resembled the time that they were married in Arnold's dream, where it was more, whereas Helga's dream was more fantastical and Harlequin romance. It was very, very, just very romantic. Arnold's dream focused on more of the realism and the reality and the drudgery of being married. And a lot of the scenes in Arnold's dreams revolved around Helga and Arnold just bickering, and Helga just being mean and not being nice to him. So it actually seemed, the real moments of Biosquare seemed very similar to the dream sequences in Marriage, so much to the point where I wondered, would these two actually get along if they were together? You'd like to hope so, but again, this is something that Helga would have to get over. She has to train herself to be nice to Arnold, not even in a romantic sense, but just civil towards him. And I think she tries to do this in a similar episode to Biosquare, the one later on in season 4 or season 5. The name escapes me now, but it's the one where they have to take care of an egg for a project. And in that one, Helga does go in with the intent of being nice, but that somehow backfires, and then they're back to square one, and then they're bickering the whole time, a la Biosquare. So yeah, I like this episode just because it gives a sort of dynamic to the Arnold-Helga relationship, where Helga isn't afforded the opportunity to remove herself from the situation and admire Arnold, but not to his face. This is a very good Arnold-Helga episode that's kind of outside of the norm. Also, it's a nice little nod to see the greenhouse in this episode, and there's a flood, and it's kind of ironic that in the flood, the greenhouse shows up again, and there's also kind of the flood coming into the greenhouse. Sorry, it's just a little side thing that I thought was kind of interesting. Okay, next episode on the list is Longest Monday. This is an urban legend episode. Actually, it's not really an urban legend episode. You can't really call it an urban legend. It's an urban legend episode in the sense that Gerald explains the urban legend, but it's more of a tradition because it's nothing to be proven or disproven. Literally a few hours later, it becomes trash can day. I should say, yes. So the urban legend / tradition in this episode is Trash Can Day. It's the first Monday of June every year where the trash is left to stay at its highest, but at the same time, because it's June and it's almost summer, the warm temperatures make the garbage more rancid and more unpleasant. So it's the peak time, if you wanted to be a real jerk, to take someone and slam them into a garbage and get the full impact of just how nasty that would be. Hence Trash Can Day. So somehow this tradition came about where the 5th graders of PS 118 would hunt down and throw every 4th grader they could find into these infamous trash cans. So the whole point of the episode is the 4th graders trying to find a way to escape the wrath of the 5th graders without succumbing to the trash can. It's a great episode. I think I mentioned earlier, I thought Mud Bowl was actually the first episode with Wolfgang. I think this was actually the first episode that premiered Wolfgang. He actually sounds a lot younger in this episode. He actually, and I say that because I'm reminded of Recess with this one, like heavily for some reason, because it deals with traditions and I guess class hierarchy among the students. And also because, I don't know if I've mentioned before, Lane Torren. Lane Torren did the voice for King Bob in Recess, and he also did the voice of Arnold, the original Arnold, and Wolfgang in Hey Arnold. And what's interesting is I think King Bob always sounded like Wolfgang from Mud Bowl. The Longest Monday Wolfgang sounds younger than how like the earliest episodes of King Bob sounded. That's just my opinion. But yeah, I think this episode is probably this episode probably came before the King Bob episode of Recess. But anyway, yeah, so it's an episode, it's almost an ensemble cast episode because there's a lot of 4th graders and we get to see a lot of Wolfgang and Edmund, and we get to see some other characters we probably will never see again, like Mickey the Weasel, and also Park's thing. Like Park has a secret fortress / safe house in this episode, and it's kind of a cool little tidbit because Park's one of those background characters that never really says anything, and this is another one of those episodes where he has a lot of speaking roles. I think you could always tell a good ensemble cast episodes by how much involvement Park has, or how much involvement a character that's normally very quiet suddenly has like a full-on scene for them. So when Arnold and Gerald and the other kids are trying to escape, at some point they reach Park's safe house. It's a brief scene, but it's just like, okay, there's a lot about Park that we don't know. And no, I'm sorry, Park never gets an episode in the entire series. Really weird. It's just, shout out to Park, Nadine, and the Peapod kid, I guess, because they never get an episode to themselves, which is tragic because I'm sure they had some interesting... Sheena, too. Sheena should have gotten an episode. Maybe after the new movie comes out, we'll finally get a chance for these characters to shine. I could only hope. I've always wanted an episode. I'm sorry to go off tangent here, but I've always wanted an episode where we just see the family lives of some of the characters that we never see. Like I always had this headcanon of the character Sheena. She's like this flower child hippie. I always assumed that she was maybe like the middle child in a family a la Gerald, where she's got this young little sister and this like maybe older sister that's just a goth and just apathetic and doesn't care about anything. And I don't know, I thought that'd be cool. But, you know, it remains to be seen. Sheena was also voiced by Francesca Marie Smith, the voice of Helga. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that these characters will finally get a chance to shine. But, you know, until then, we're left to enjoy the episodes like The Longest Monday. Okay, the final episode on this list, the unequivocal season 2 episode that, again, it's one of those episodes that I'd be lampooned if I didn't put it on the list. And it is a season 2 episode. It was not made in season 1. It was made specifically for season 2. So I'm in the clear for this one, but it's an obvious choice. What's Opera Arnold? So in What's Opera Arnold, Arnold's class is going on a field trip to see the opera Carmen. They go to see this opera, and both Arnold and Helga fall asleep. I guess that either at a late night or they just don't have the attention for opera. So Arnold falls asleep, and he has a dream set on stage a la the opera Carmen, and Helga does the same. And it's a musical, so a lot of the lines are sung during these dream sequences. It's not really hard to say why this episode needs to be on the list. It's a musical. I remember when this episode first came out. Like literally, I think I saw it when it first came out. I don't know if it was shown at night, but from when I remember it, it was kind of shown almost without any fanfare. I don't remember the exact day, but I think I was just watching cartoons, and then the little promo bumper that comes before the episode, like, hey, What's Opera Arnold is next. And then the episode just came and happened, and it was awesome because What's Opera Arnold is the first musical episode. Not the first episode with songs, but definitely the first musically inclined episode. It has a sprawling cast. The only reason I didn't put this episode in the ensemble cast episode is, well, the episode, all the characters are there, but they don't all have like their own little moments. They're all kind of singing as part of a group. But you could consider this an ensemble cast episode because basically all the fourth graders are there, even if they don't have individual speaking lines. Everyone's in the background, so everyone's there. Even some of the sixth graders are there because like Mr. Pakenham is the teacher that brought them to this play, but Mr. Pakenham is a fifth grade teacher, and yet even then there's like Connie, Maria, and Ruth are there, and they're all sixth graders, so I always thought that was kind of weird. Maybe they're the chaperones, Ruth and Connie and Maria, and maybe Mr. Pakenham was filling in for Mr. Simmons, or maybe Mrs. Slovak had left and they hadn't gotten a teacher maybe they hadn't gotten Mr. Simmons yet. So I don't know, like, don't think too much into why there's like 3 different grades being represented on this field trip, but just know that Ruth is there, obviously, to extend the plot, because at this point in time, Arnold was still infatuated with Ruth, and Helga didn't like it. This is the only episode in the entire series where 2 actors voice Arnold in the same episode. So Philip Van Dyke is the speaking voice of Arnold in this episode. But during the singing lines, which there is only one, Philip Van Dyke did not feel comfortable singing, according to the trivia that I had read. It was actually Lane Torren that did the singing part. And it's a testament to how both these actors are so well suited to Arnold, because I didn't quite clue in at what point Lane Torren was replaced by Philip Van Dyke. And even here, you can't really tell. It's a very seamless, you kind of just go with it. And maybe it helps that Lane Torren was the original Arnold, so it's not so dramatic. It's like, oh, that's so not Arnold. Also, this is one of the greatest closing credit episodes. In a lot of episodes, they end with Jim Lang's Jazzy Tune, which is a great song. I apologize, I don't remember the name of the song right now. In some episodes, they switch it up. Sometimes they'll do a country song. Sometimes they'll do something kind of, I don't know, just different. In this episode, they do a rap, and they did this a lot actually. Now they did this a few times in the early episodes. I think the episode Teacher Strike also had a rap, not as good as this one though. This one was just very catchy, and it seems to get the whole cast together to sing a song that doesn't appear in the actual episode, but it's just fun to imagine all the kids sitting around singing this alternate song as part of the ending. So I could see why this is one of Craig Bartlett's favorite episodes. It just looks like it was a whole lot of fun to create, to maybe storyboard, to get all the actors together to sing. It's a no-brainer for one of the best season 2 episodes. I'm gonna conclude this with my new segment of giving a shout out to fan related stuff. I didn't really get a chance to find anything new, so I'm just going to bring up some old news that I meant to bring up, I think, in a previous episode. So there's this podcast, I'm probably going to butcher this gentleman's name, so I apologize in advance, Arun Mehta, and he from time to time does Hey Arnold interviews, and from time to time I think he interviews Craig Bartlett. So there was a recent interview that went on earlier in October 2016 for the 20th anniversary of Hey Arnold. I did not get a chance to listen to the podcast yet, but one of the biggest take-homes from the interview is, I guess it was asked if Lila was going to make an appearance in the new movie that's set to come out in 2017. And I guess it was revealed that no, she is not. And that's actually big news, because the Arnold Lila Helga dynamic was such a pivotal part of the later seasons of the show. And for them to just disregard it, I have mixed feelings about it. Honestly, I'm actually kind of happy that Lila's not going to be in it, because I always felt, I didn't mind the Arnold and the Ruth and the Helga love triangle, but I've always felt that the Helga, Lila, Arnold love triangle was so contrived. It seems like a running idea that just, it ran out of steam in the season that it was brought up, but they just would not let it go. And I found that so annoying. And so I'm kind of glad they just got rid of Lila, because one of my lingering fears about the movie is it going to be one of those things where Arnold's going to spend a lot of time with Lila, and it's going to make Helga jealous, and is he just going to fall for her in the jungle as kind of a red herring to them getting together? But then that also makes me wonder, okay, maybe they got rid of Lila because they're just going to replace her with a carbon copy. So maybe Lila's not going to be there, but maybe it's going to be Green Eyes Lila. So a character that's basically like literally a palette swap of Lila. Instead of Lila, it's going to be a girl exactly like Lila, but she's a Green Eyes. So one of the plot points I hope doesn't come up in the movie is everyone meets the Green Eyes, and then Arnold is paired up with this girl who's like perfect and everything that he wants, and is basically Lila, but she lives in the jungle with the Green Eyes, and that makes Helga jealous. I bring this up like, okay, like the episode, like the movie The Rescuers Down Under, right? Which I think is a perfect example, because I think it was like 20 years after The Rescuers came out, when The Rescuers Down Under came out, and it was almost the same subplot of Bernard trying to get with Miss Bianca, but there was this other kangaroo mouse that kept interrupting and getting in Bernard's grill and preventing him from expressing his true feelings to Miss Bianca. And I didn't mind that in The Rescuers Down Under, but I would find that so annoying if they did the same sort of plot in the Jungle movie. So I'm hoping the fact that Lila's not there just means they're going to totally disregard the whole Helga has competition sort of weird antagonistic subplot, and they're just going to focus more on the story of Arnold finding his parents. It remains to be seen, but anyway, I bring this up. There's probably a lot more interesting tidbits from that interview, but I just wanted to discuss that briefly, because that's a huge bit of fan news. So sorry, fans of Lila, she's not going to be in it, but yay, maybe, the story will be better for it. Okay, so thank you. That concludes today's episode of the Vacant Lot podcast. I apologize for the disjointed episode. I hope to be better on track when we tackle season 3. If you're enjoying what I'm doing so far, you can subscribe to The Vacant Lot on iTunes. The show is also available on Google Play, and it's now also available on Stitcher and TuneIn as well. If you want to follow me on Twitter, just go to Vacant Lot Show. And if you want to send me a line, you could either do so on the actual website, vacantlotpodcast.com, or you can send me an email at thevacantlotpodcast@gmail.com. So that concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Sylvie. Bye-bye. The song you are listening to is Sweatari by the band Escalate. Be sure to download their album The Pop Machine on iTunes. That's the band Escalate, ESCALATE!